The stars looked different out here in the outer fringe. Captain Hien Wu stood on the bridge of the meridian, watching the pale light of distant suns paint shadows across the view screen. His ship was small compared to the massive vessels that belonged to the older galactic species. It had basic weapons, standard shields, and a crew of just 4 people. But it was enough for their mission. "We're approaching Talos 4, Jiwon said from the navigation station. She was young, barely 25, but she had the steadiest hands Hien Wu had ever seen on a pilot. "The mining station should be visible in about 10 minutes. Hien Wu nodded and turned to check on the rest of his crew. Daehyun was in the engine room, making sure everything ran smoothly. The man could fix anything with enough time and the right tools. Sumin sat at the medical station, reviewing her supplies. She always prepared for the worst, which had saved their lives more than once. Humans were new to space. It had only been 30 years since first contact. When the galactic community discovered Earth, at first the other species had been excited. A new civilization meant new trade, new ideas, new possibilities. But that excitement faded quickly when they realized what humans were. Weak, fragile, prey, compared to the Vrask with their armored scales and venomous claws. Or the Keldan with their 4 arms and crushing strength. Humans seemed pathetic. They had no natural weapons. Their skin tore easily. Their bones broke under pressure that other species barely noticed. Even their senses were dull compared to most predators in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had given humanity a small territory and a few trade agreements, but nobody took them seriously. Humans were tolerated, not respected. They were seen as soft creatures who had somehow stumbled into space travel through luck rather than strength. Hien Wu hated that attitude, but he understood it. Action spoke louder than words, and humanity hadn't done anything yet to change their reputation. Maybe this diplomatic mission would be a small step in the right direction. "Station in sight," Jiwon announced. The mining station floated against the dark sky like a broken skeleton. It had been abandoned 5 years ago when the ore deposits ran dry. Metal beams jutted out at odd angles, and several sections had collapsed. But the structure was still mostly intact, and their sensors showed it still had atmosphere in some areas. "Why are we stopping here again?" Daehyun asked over the comm system. "The Galactic Council wants us to survey abandoned installations in this sector," Hien Wu replied. "They need to know which ones can be salvaged and which ones are total losses. It's boring work, but it's the kind of job they give to new species." "Busy work," Sumin muttered. "They're keeping us occupied with tasks that don't matter." She wasn't wrong, but Hien Wu didn't say that out loud. Every mission was a chance to prove themselves, even the boring ones. The Meridian docked at one of the station's airlocks. The connection was rough, and the seal took 3 tries before it held properly. Hien Wu pulled on his environment suit and checked his equipment. He carried a standard sidearm, a scanning device, and a portable light. Ji-won and Sumin suited up as well. While Daehyun stayed behind to monitor the ship, the airlock cycled open with a hiss of stale air. The station's interior was dark and cold. Their lights cut through the shadows, revealing corridors filled with dust and debris. Equipment lay scattered everywhere, left behind when the miners evacuated. "Atmosphere is breathable," Sumin said, checking her scanner. "Barely high carbon dioxide levels, but we won't suffocate." They moved deeper into the station, documenting everything they saw. Most of it was junk. Broken terminals, empty storage containers, damaged machinery. Nothing worth salvaging? Hien Wu started to think this would be the shortest survey mission on record. Then he heard something. It was faint, just a scraping sound that echoed through the metal walls. Hien Wu raised his hand, signaling the others to stop. They stood in silence, listening. The sound came again, followed by a low, clicking noise. "Something's here," Jiwon whispered. Hien Wu drew his sidearm and moved toward the sound. They entered what looked like an old cargo bay. Empty crates were stacked against the walls, and loose cables hung from the ceiling. In the center of the room, 3 shapes moved in the darkness. Hien Wu raised his light, and his breath caught in his throat. They were Vrask, but not adult Vrask. These were juveniles, barely past their hatching stage. Their scales were soft and pale, lacking the dark armored plates that adult Vrask developed. Their claws were small, almost delicate. One of them clutched a torn ration pack, while another sniffed at a broken container. The largest of the three noticed Hyan-Wu's light and spun around. It tried to bare its teeth and hiss, but the sound came out weak and frightened. The creature was trying to look dangerous, but it was obviously terrified. "Easy," Hyan-Wu said softly, lowering his weapon. "We're not going to hurt you." The young Vrask didn't seem to understand. It backed up, pushing the other two behind it protectively. The smallest one made a whimpering sound. "Captain, these are Vrask young," Sumin said quietly. "What are they doing here alone?" Before Hyan-Wu could answer, the station's emergency alarms began to wail. Red lights flashed throughout the corridors. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. "Dae-Hyan, report!" Hyan-Wu shouted into his cum. "We've got incoming ships." Dae-Hyan's voice crackled with static. "Multiple contacts moving fast. They're not broadcasting any identification codes. Pirates?" Ji-Won asked. "Worse," Dae-Hyan said. "Scanners identify them as Scarl Collective vessels. They're launching boarding parties." Hyan-Wu felt ice run through his veins. The Scarl Collective were slavers and scavengers, known throughout the Outer Fringe for their brutality. They took anything valuable and killed anything that resisted. And young predator species were extremely valuable on the black market. The Vrask cubs weren't here by accident. They were hiding. Explosions rocked the station as the Scarl ships opened fire. The metal walls groaned and buckled. Somewhere above them, something collapsed with a thunderous crash. "We need to get back to the ship," Sumin shouted. But Hyan-Wu looked at the three young Vrask, huddled together in terror, and he knew they couldn't just leave them. The cubs would be captured or killed. He thought about running, about saving his own crew and abandoning these creatures. Then the largest cub met his eyes, and Hyan-Wu saw something he recognized: fear, desperation, the will to survive. He made his decision. "We take them with us," Hyan-Wu said. "Move!" They ran. The corridors shook as another explosion tore through the mining station. Hyan-Wu led his crew through the twisting passages, the three Vrask cubs following close behind. The young creatures moved with surprising speed, their clawed feet scraping against the metal floor. "Dae-Hyan, status?" Hyan-Wu shouted into his cum over the sound of alarms. "The Meridian took a hit." Dae-Hyan's voice was strained. "Port engine is damaged. I'm working on it, but we're not going anywhere fast. They hit our communications array too. The distress signal got out, but I can't receive anything." Hyan-Wu cursed under his breath. They were trapped on a dying station with no way to call for immediate help. The distress signal would take hours to reach anyone who could respond. They didn't have hours. Through the viewports along the corridor, Hyan-Wu could see the Scarl ships. They were ugly vessels, covered in mismatched armor plates and weapon systems salvaged from a dozen different species. Boarding pods launched from their hulls like insects swarming toward food. "They're coming in through multiple entry points," Ji-Won said, checking her scanner. "At least 40 hostiles. Maybe more." The smallest Vrask cub stumbled, and Sumin caught it before it fell. The creature flinched at her touch, but didn't pull away. Its scales were trembling. "We can't reach the ship," Hyan-Wu said, thinking fast. "We need to find a defensible position. Somewhere we can hold out until help arrives." "The lower cargo bay," Ji-Won suggested. "There's only one entrance and the walls are reinforced. It was designed to store volatile materials." It wasn't much of a plan, but it was all they had. Hyan-Wu nodded, and they changed direction, heading deeper into the station. Behind them, they could hear the sounds of the Scarl warriors breaching the outer sections. Harsh, clicking voices echoed through the corridors. Speaking in a language that sounded like grinding metal, they reached the cargo bay and sealed the door behind them. The room was large and mostly empty, with a few scattered crates and broken equipment. The walls were thick metal, designed to contain explosions. "One entrance, just like Ji-Won said." "Set up a perimeter," Hyan-Wu ordered. "Use whatever we can find for cover." They worked quickly, dragging crates and debris to create a makeshift barrier near the door. It wouldn't stop a determined assault, but it might slow them down. Han Wu checked his weapon. Standard issue plasma pistol, 8 shots remaining. Ji-won had the same. Su-min carried a medical laser cutter, meant for surgery but capable of causing serious damage at close range. The Vrask cubs watched them with wide eyes. The largest one, the one who had tried to protect the others earlier, made a low rumbling sound. It was trying to communicate, but Hyan Wu didn't speak their language. "We're going to get you out of here," Hyan Wu said, even though he knew the creature probably didn't understand. "I promise." The door shuddered as something struck it from the outside. Once, twice, then it stopped. Silence filled the cargo bay, broken only by the sound of their breathing and the distant groaning of the damaged station. "They're toying with us," Hu-won whispered. "They know we're trapped." She was right. The Skarl weren't rushing in because they didn't need to. They could take their time, wear down their prey, and strike when their targets were. Exhausted and desperate, the door suddenly exploded inward with a blast of superheated plasma. Metal fragments scattered across the room. Through the smoking hole, Hyan Wu could see them. The Skarl warriors were nightmare creatures. They stood on 4 legs, with segmented exoskeletons that gleamed like polished black stone. Their heads were dominated by large compound eyes and mandibles that could snap bone. Each warrior carried weapons grafted directly into their bodies. Biological and mechanical parts merged together. They entered the cargo bay in formation, moving with the precision of trained soldiers. 20 of them, maybe more behind them. Their mandibles clicked in what might have been communication or laughter. One Skarl pushed to the front. Larger than the others? Its exoskeleton was decorated with markings, and it carried what looked like a plasma cannon fused to its right arm. This was their commander. "Humans," the creature said in perfect galactic common. Its voice was harsh, like rocks grinding together. "How unfortunate for you. You have something we want." The commander's eyes fixed on the Vrask cubs who had pressed themselves against the far wall. "Vrask juveniles," the Skarl commander continued. "Rare, valuable, they will fetch a high price in the fighting pits. As for you," the creature's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. "Humans are worth nothing. No market for your kind. Too weak to fight, too fragile to work. Better to kill you quickly and take what we came for." Han Wu felt his crew tense beside him. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and trapped. Any rational person would surrender or try to negotiate. But as Hyan Wu looked at the 3 terrified cubs behind him, something ancient stirred in his chest. He thought about Earth, about humanity's history, about all the times his species had faced impossible odds and refused to back down. Not because they were the strongest, not because they had the best weapons, but because sometimes the only choice was to stand and fight. "No," Hyan Wu said simply. The Skarl commander tilted its head. "No, you're not taking them," Hyan Wu said. His voice was steady, calm, and absolutely certain. "You'll have to go through us first." The Skarl warriors clicked their mandibles in what was clearly amusement. The commander let out a rasping laugh. "Through you? You are 4 humans with small weapons. We are 20 Skarl warriors bred for war. You cannot stop us." Hyan Wu stepped forward, placing himself directly between the Skarl and the cubs. Ji-won moved to his right, Su-min to his left. Behind them, even Daehan's voice crackled over the cum. "I'm on my way, Captain." 30 seconds? The cargo bay fell silent. The Skarl warriors stopped clicking. Something in the air had changed. The humans weren't running. They weren't begging. They were standing their ground with a quiet intensity that made even the Skarl pause. Hyan Wu looked the commander directly in its compound eyes. When he spoke, his voice dropped to a low growl that seemed to come from somewhere deep and primal. "On my planet, we had creatures that tried to eat us. Big things. Strong things. Things with claws and teeth that made your warriors look weak." He took another step forward. "Do you know what happened to them?" The Skarl commander didn't answer. "We killed them all," Hyan Wu said. "Every single one. Because that's what humans do. We protect our pack. And right now, those cubs are part of my pack. He bared his teeth in a way that transcended species, a gesture of pure aggression that needed no translation. So come on, Hyun-woo said. Let's see if you're better than a bear. The Scarl commander raised its plasma cannon, and then everything exploded into violence. The first plasma bolt screamed past Hyun-woo's head, close enough that he felt the heat singe his hair. He dove behind a metal crate as more shots followed, turning the cargo bay into a storm of light and sound. His crew scattered, taking cover wherever they could find it, suppressing fire. Hyun-woo shouted, leaning around the crate to squeeze off 2 shots. Both hit a Scarl warrior in the chest, cracking its exoskeleton but not dropping it. These things were tough. G1 fired from behind a broken loader, her shots more precise than Hyun-woo's. She aimed for joints and weak points, trying to disable rather than kill. It was working, but too slowly. They were still outnumbered 5-1. Dae-hyun burst through a maintenance hatch on the far wall, carrying a plasma torch and a fuel canister. The engineer's eyes were wild but focused. He didn't even pause, just ran straight for the nearest support beam. "Cover me!" he shouted. Hyun-woo understood immediately. He stepped out from cover, firing rapidly to draw the Scarl's attention. Plasma bolts tore through the air around him. One grazed his shoulder, burning through his suit and searing his skin. He ignored the pain and kept firing. Dae-hyun reached the beam and started cutting into the fuel line that ran along the ceiling. The Scarl noticed him too late. The engineer yanked the canister's valve, and pressurized fuel sprayed across the room. Then he touched the plasma torch to it. The explosion was massive. Fire bloomed across the ceiling, and a section of the roof collapsed directly onto a group of Scarl warriors. 3 of them went down under tons of metal, their exoskeletons crushed. The others scattered, their formation broken. "Good thinking," Ji-won yelled, but there were still too many. The Scarl regrouped quickly, their commander barking orders in their clicking language. They advanced in pairs now, covering each other, learning from their mistake. Hyun-woo's weapon beeped. 3 shots left. He looked around desperately for anything that could help. His eyes fell on the station's security terminal, half buried under debris. 1. The security system. She saw what he meant and ran for it, keeping low. Plasma bolts chased her, but she slid behind the terminal and started working. Her fingers flew across the damaged controls, rerouting power and bypassing broken circuits. Come on, she muttered. A Scarl warrior rounded the crate where Hyun-woo was hiding. It raised its weapon, mandibles spread wide. Hyun-woo didn't have time to aim. He just threw himself forward, slamming into the creature with all his weight. It was like hitting a wall. The Scarl barely moved, but Hyun-woo managed to knock its weapon arm aside. He jammed his pistol under the creature's head and fired twice at point-blank range. The Scarl's exoskeleton cracked, and green fluid sprayed out. The warrior collapsed. Hyun-woo grabbed the fallen Scarl's weapon. It was some kind of plasma rifle, far more powerful than his pistol. The weapon felt wrong in his hands, designed for a completely different anatomy, but he could make it work. Got it! Ji-won shouted. The old security turrets mounted in the corners of the cargo bay suddenly hummed to life. They rotated, targeting systems locking onto the Scarl warriors. Then they opened fire. The automated guns had been designed to stop industrial accidents and riots. Not military assaults, but they were still deadly. High-velocity rounds tore into the Scarl formation. 2 more warriors fell, their exoskeletons shattered. The Scarl commander roared in fury and fired at the turrets. One exploded in a shower of sparks. But the distraction was enough. Sumin darted out from cover and reached one of the wounded Scarl. She pressed her medical laser against a gap in its exoskeleton and fired. The laser wasn't meant to be a weapon. But Sumin knew exactly where to aim. The beam cut through nerve clusters and vital organs. The Scarl convulsed and went still. "Nerve cluster at the base of the spine," she shouted. "That's the weak point." Armed with this knowledge, the humans fought with new intensity. But they were paying for every inch. Dae-hyun took a hit to his side, cracking ribs and sending him sprawling. Devlin's arm was slashed by mandibles when a Scarl got too close. Hien-Woo had burns and cuts covering his body. Behind them, the three Vrask cubs huddled together, watching the battle with terrified eyes. They were completely silent, frozen by fear. The Scarl commander had seen enough. It pushed through its own warriors, plasma cannon charging with a high-pitched whine. The weapon glowed white-hot, building up energy for a shot that would vaporize anything it hit. "Move!" Hien-Woo screamed, but there was nowhere to go. The commander had a clear line to the cubs. At this range, even the reinforced walls wouldn't stop the blast. The creature's mandibles spread in triumph. Then something changed in Hien-Woo. He didn't think. Didn't plan. Didn't calculate odds. He just moved. He sprinted directly at the Scarl commander, firing the stolen plasma rifle as he ran. Most shots went wide. A few hit the creature's armor but didn't penetrate. Hien-Woo didn't care. He wasn't trying to kill it, he was trying to make it focus on him. The commander's aim shifted, tracking Hien-Woo. The human was too close now, inside the optimal firing range. The Scarl tried to adjust, but Hien-Woo was already there. He dropped the rifle and grabbed onto the commander's weapon arm with both hands. The plasma cannon was still charging, building to critical levels. Hien-Woo could feel the heat burning his palms, smell his own flesh cooking. "Not today," he growled through clenched teeth. With all his strength, Hien-Woo wrenched the weapon arm upward. The Scarl commander was far stronger, but Hien-Woo had leverage and desperation on his side. The cannon's aim tilted toward the ceiling, the weapon fired, the plasma bolt punched through the cargo bay's roof, through 2 more levels of the station, and out into space. The explosion tore a massive hole above them, and emergency bulkheads began to slam shut throughout the station. Hien-Woo didn't let go. He held on as the commander tried to shake him off, mandibles snapping inches from his face. His hands were destroyed, the skin charred black. But he kept his grip. The Scarl commander raised its other arm, tipped with a blade-like claw, and drove it toward Hien-Woo's chest. A plasma bolt hit the commander's arm mid-swing. Then another. And another. Ji-Won and Su-Min were firing together, targeting the same spot. The commander's exoskeleton cracked and the arm went limp. Dae-Hyen, clutching his broken ribs, had crawled to the security terminal and reactivated the last turret. The combined firepower was too much. The Scarl commander staggered backward, and Hien-Woo finally released his grip. Falling to his knees, the commander looked down at the human, compound eyes reflecting something that might have been respect or fury. Then it turned to its remaining warriors. "Retreat," it said in Galactic Common. "Commander, the Cubs," one warrior began. "Retreat," the commander roared. "These humans are insane. They fight like cornered animals. The prize is not worth this cost." The Scarl warriors withdrew, dragging their wounded with them. Within minutes, the cargo bay was silent except for the sound of alarms and the groan of damaged metal. Hien-Woo collapsed fully onto the floor, his burned hands useless at his sides. Su-Min rushed to him immediately, pulling out her medical supplies. "That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen," she said, but her voice was shaking with emotion. "You could have died." "Had to," Hien-Woo managed. "The Cubs. He turned his head and saw the 3 young Vrasks staring at him. They were alive. Terrified, but alive, that was enough. The cargo bay fell into an uneasy silence after the Scarl retreated. Su-Min worked frantically on Hien-Woo's hands, spraying synthetic skin over the worst of the burns and injecting pain medication. The captain gritted his teeth through the treatment, refusing to make a sound. "We can't stay here," Dae-Hyen said, wincing as he held his ribs. "The station's structural integrity is failing. That hole in the roof compromised 3 sections. We have maybe 20 minutes before this whole level depressurizes. Can you get the Meridian flight ready?" Hien-Woo asked. "I can try. The port engine is still damaged, but I might be able to jury-rig something. We'll be flying slow and ugly, but we'll be flying." "Do it." Dae-Hyen nodded and limped toward the maintenance hatch he'd entered through. Every movement clearly caused him pain, but the engineer didn't complain. He disappeared into the narrow tunnel, heading back to their ship. Ji-Won kept watch at the entrance, her weapon trained on the corridor beyond. Blood dripped from the slash on her arm, staining her suit, but she ignored it. Her eyes were alert, scanning for any sign of the Scarl returning. Han Wu tried to stand, but his legs gave out. Su Min caught him before he hit the floor. "Don't be an idiot," she said. "You're in shock. Your body just went through hell. Give the medication time to work." "We don't have time," Han Wu replied, but he didn't try to stand again. A soft clicking sound made them both turn. The largest of the three Vrask cubs was approaching slowly, its pale scales catching the emergency lighting. The creature moved with caution, but not fear. "Not anymore." It stopped a few feet away from Han Wu and lowered its head. The gesture reminded Han Wu of a dog showing submission, but there was more to it. Respect, maybe. Or gratitude. The cub made a low rumbling sound in its chest. Then it did something unexpected. It gently touched its snout to Han Wu's burned hand, careful not to press against the wounds. The contact was brief, almost ceremonial. "I think it's saying thank you," Su Min whispered. The other two cubs approached as well, less brave but clearly following their siblings' lead. The smallest one, the one Su Min had caught when it stumbled, pressed against the medic's leg and made a soft purring sound. "We need to keep moving," the one called from the entrance. "I'm picking up movement on my scanner. Something's coming back." Han Wu forced himself to his feet with Su Min's help. "The Scarl?" "I don't think so. The signature is different, bigger." A new fear gripped Han Wu's chest. If something bigger than the Scarl was coming, they were in serious trouble. The Scarl Collective was already at the top of the danger scale in this sector. "Everyone move toward the meridian," he ordered. "Stay together, keep the cubs in the middle." They left the cargo bay and entered the damaged corridors. The station was dying around them. Sparks rained from broken cables. Emergency lights flickered and failed. The temperature was dropping as life support systems shut down one by one. The Vrask cubs stayed close to the humans, moving in formation like they understood the danger. The largest one positioned itself near Han Wu, while the other two flanked Su Min and Ji-1. They were almost to the docking level when P1's scanner started screaming warnings. "Contact! Multiple signatures closing fast!" From a side corridor, a group of Scarl warriors emerged. But these weren't the same ones from before. These were fresh troops, uninjured and fully armed. The Scarl hadn't given up after all. They'd just regrouped and called for reinforcements. Leading them was the same commander from the cargo bay. Its damaged arm had been hastily repaired with metal bracing, and its eyes burned with rage. "Did you think we would let you escape?" The commander clicked. "You humiliated us, made us retreat. That cannot stand. The cubs are still valuable, yes. But now we will kill you slowly, painfully as an example." Han Wu's weapon was empty. Ji-1 had maybe 2 shots left. Su Min's laser cutter was drained. Daehyun was on the ship and couldn't help them. They had nothing left to fight with. The Scarl warriors advanced, weapons raised, mandibles clicking in anticipation. Then the largest Vrask cub did something that shocked everyone. It roared, not the weak, frightened sound it had made in the cargo bay. This was different, deeper, more primal. The sound of a predator remembering what it was born to be. The cub charged. "No!" Han Wu shouted, but the young Vrask didn't stop. It was suicide. The cub was small, its claws barely developed, its scales soft. Against armored Scarl warriors it didn't stand a chance. But it charged anyway. Throwing itself at the Scarl commander with reckless courage, the cub's claws scraped against the commander's exoskeleton, barely leaving marks. Its teeth couldn't pierce the armor. But it fought with everything it had, snarling and biting and refusing to back down. The commander raised its weapon to end the cub's life with a single shot. The other 2 cubs attacked as well. The smaller one went for the commander's legs, wrapping its body around one limb and biting at the joints. The middle cub leaped onto another Scarl warrior's back, clawing at its eyes. They weren't doing real damage. They were too young, too weak, but they were creating chaos. And more importantly, they were creating an opening. Han Wu saw it. The commander was distracted, focused on the cubs attacking it from multiple angles. Its weapon wasn't aimed at anything vital. And on the ground, dropped by a Scarl warrior the cubs had knocked over, was a plasma blade. Hyun Woo ran, his burned hands screamed in agony as he grabbed the blade. His wounded body protested every movement. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. These cubs had just thrown themselves into danger to save him, just like he'd done for them. The Scarl commander saw him coming too late. It tried to turn its weapon, but the largest cub was still clinging to its arm, weighing it down. Hyun Woo drove the plasma blade up through the gap between the commander's neck and chest plate, into the nerve cluster Su-min had identified earlier. The blade sank deep, burning through organic tissue. The commander went rigid. Its compound eyes dimmed. Then it collapsed, taking Hyun Woo down with it. The other Scarl warriors froze, staring at their fallen leader. The human had killed their commander. Twice now they'd tried to take him down, and twice he'd refused to die. Something in them broke. "Retreat!" one warrior shouted, and this time they meant it. The Scarl turned and ran, abandoning the station completely. Their ships disengaged and burned hard for deep space, leaving behind their dead and their wounded. Hyun Woo lay on the floor, the dead commander on top of him. He couldn't move, couldn't think. He could only breathe. Su-min and Ji-won pulled the Scarl's body off him. The three cubs crowded around, making worried clicking sounds. The largest one pressed its snout against Hyun Woo's cheek, purring softly. "We did it," Ji-won said, her voice full of disbelief. "We actually did it. Hyun Woo managed to say. Ship." The engineer's voice crackled over the com. "Flight ready, Captain." "Barely, but I just picked up something on long-range sensors. Big ship, incoming fast. It's broadcasting Vrask military codes." Hyun Woo closed his eyes and let out a long breath. Help had arrived. They'd survived. The Vrask warship emerged from faster-than-light travel like a predator materializing from shadows. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the Meridian, with sleek armor plating and weapon systems that could reduce a small moon to dust. The ship's name was written in Vrask script across its hull, but Hyun Woo couldn't read it. What he could see, even through his exhaustion and pain, was that they were either about to be rescued or killed. With the Vrask, it could go either way. Su-min had managed to get Hyun Woo back to the Meridian and into the medical bay. His hands were wrapped in regenerative bandages, and he'd been given enough painkillers to knock out a horse. But he refused to sleep. Not until he knew what would happen next. Hyun sat in the pilot's seat, nursing his broken ribs and watching the massive warship approach. Ji-won stood beside him, her wounded arm in a sling. Both of them looked ready to collapse. The three Vrask cubs had refused to leave Hyun Woo's side. They crowded into the small medical bay, making soft clicking sounds and watching the humans with concerned eyes. The largest one lay with its head resting on the edge of Hyun Woo's bed, occasionally nudging him gently with its snout. "They're hailing us," Hyun reported. "Audio only?" "Put it through," Hyun Woo said. A voice filled the bridge. Speaking in Galactic Common with the distinctive rumbling accent of the Vrask, it was female, deep and commanding. "Human vessel Meridian. This is War Commander Talanara of the Vrask Crimson Fleet. Stand down and prepare to be boarded. Do not resist, or you will be destroyed." Not exactly friendly, but not immediately hostile either. Hyun Woo gestured for Hyun to open a channel. "War Commander Talanara, this is Captain Hyun Woo of the Meridian. We're not resisting, but I need you to know we have 3 Vrask juveniles aboard. They're unharmed, but frightened. Please approach carefully." There was a long pause. When Talanara spoke again, her voice was different. Softer, almost uncertain. "You have our young?" "Which clan?" "I don't know," Hyun Woo admitted. "We found them on the mining station. They were being hunted by Scarl slavers." Another pause, longer this time. "Stand by." The Vrask warship moved into position alongside the Meridian. A boarding tube extended and connected with their airlock. Through the medical bay's small viewport, Hyun Woo could see armored Vrask warriors gathering at the entrance. "Here we go," one muttered. The airlock cycled open. And the Vrask entered. They were terrifying up close. Adult Vrask stood nearly 7 feet tall, with scales like dark metal and claws that could tear through ship hulls. They moved with perfect coordination, weapons ready, eyes scanning for threats. These were soldiers bred and trained for war. Leading them was War Commander Talanara. She was slightly smaller than her warriors, but carried herself with absolute authority. Her scales were darker than the others, marked with scars from countless battles. She wore minimal armor, as if she didn't need it. Talanara's eyes swept the Meridian's interior, taking in the damage, the blood, the signs of desperate combat. Then her gaze fell on the three cubs. The change in her was instantaneous. The hardened warrior disappeared, replaced by something gentler. She dropped to one knee and made a soft clicking sound. The largest cub looked at Haiyan-Wu, as if asking permission. The human nodded weakly. All three cubs ran to Talanara. They pressed against her, making distressed sounds, telling their story in a language Haiyan-Wu couldn't understand. The war commander wrapped her arms around them, holding them close, and made soothing, rumbling noises. After a long moment, she looked up at Haiyan-Wu. Her eyes were complex, full of emotions that didn't translate well across species lines. "These are from the Bloodstone clan," she said quietly. "They were lost 3 weeks ago when their transport was attacked. We believe them dead." She stood slowly, the cubs still clinging to her legs. "You fought for them?" Talanara continued. "It wasn't a question. Your crew is wounded. Your ship is damaged. The station is full of Scarlbotas. You fought for Vrask young that were not your own." "Yes," Haiyan-Wu said simply. "Why?" It was the same question the Scarl commander had asked, but coming from Talanara, it meant something different. She genuinely wanted to understand. "Because they needed help," Haiyan-Wu said. "Because they were kids who were scared and alone. Because leaving them to die would have been wrong." "Does there need to be another reason?" Talanara studied him for a long moment. Then she turned to her warriors and spoke in the Vrask language. The soldiers immediately straightened, and as one, they performed a gesture that Haiyan-Wu had never seen before. They placed their clawed fists over their chests and lowered their heads. "What's happening?" Ji-Won whispered. Talanara turned back to Haiyan-Wu and repeated the gesture. "In our culture there is a concept called Scathara," she explained. "It means honor debt. When someone saves a life at great personal cost, especially the life of one's young, the debt can never be fully repaid. It binds clans together across generations." She stepped closer to Haiyan-Wu's bed, and the largest cub moved aside to let her approach. "You are human. You are supposed to be prey, weak, fragile, without worth." Talanara's voice grew stronger. "But you fought like a Vrask. You protected our young with your life. You earned their loyalty and ours." She raised her voice so everyone could hear, both on the Meridian and through the come to her own ship. "I name you Fang Brother, Captain Haiyan-Wu, guardian of our blood. The Vrask clans owe you Scathara. Your courage will be recorded in our histories. Your name will be honored in our halls." The Vrask warriors raised their weapons in salute, roaring a battle cry that shook the ship's walls. Haiyan-Wu didn't know what to say. He looked at his crew, at the cubs, at the fearsome war commander who was looking at him with something approaching reverence. "I just did what anyone should do," he finally managed. "No," Talanara said firmly. "You did what few would dare. You stood between predators and their prey, and you did not break. That is worthy of honor." She gestured to her warriors, who immediately began helping. Medical teams tended to Haiyan-Wu's crew with supplies far better than anything the Meridian carried. Engineers swarmed over the damaged ship, making repairs. The cubs were gently carried to the warship, though they kept looking back at Haiyan-Wu until they were out of sight, before Talanara left. She paused at the medical bay entrance. "The galaxy calls your species weak," she said. "They are fools. I have seen your strength. It is not in your claws or your scales. It is in your spirit, in your refusal to abandon those who need protection." She met Haiyan-Wu's eyes one last time. "The Vrask will remember this. And when the galaxy learns what happened here, they will remember it too. Humans are not prey. You are something far more dangerous." "What's that?" Haiyan-Wu asked. Talanara's expression was unreadable, but her voice carried absolute certainty. "Protectors. The galaxy should be grateful you fight for others rather than for conquest. Because if humans ever chose to bare their teeth in anger rather than defense, she paused, I would not want to face you. With that, she left. Hours later, after repairs were completed and the Meridian was ready to travel again, Han Wu sat in his quarters looking at the official report. The distress signal had been received by multiple ships. News of the battle had already started spreading through the outer fringe. 4 humans had held off dozens of Scarl warriors to protect Vrask Young. The story was growing with each telling, becoming something larger than what had actually happened. But at its core, the truth remained. Humanity had proven something important. Daehyun appeared in the doorway, walking without a limp now that Vrask medicine had healed his ribs. Captain, we're getting message requests from half the stations in the sector. Everyone wants to know about the humans who fought the Scarl. What should I tell them? Han Wu thought about it for a moment, then smiled tiredly. Tell them the truth. We protected some kids who needed help. That's all? That's all? Daehyun grinned. Boss, I think we just changed how the galaxy sees humanity. Maybe they had? Or maybe they just reminded the galaxy of something it had forgotten. That strength wasn't just about claws and teeth and armor. Sometimes the strongest thing you could do was stand between danger and those who couldn't fight back. The Meridian's engines hummed to life and they set course for home. Behind them, the Vrask warship kept pace. An honor guard seeing them safely through dangerous space. Han Wu closed his eyes and finally let himself rest. The galaxy was learning. Humans were not prey.